Hi everyone, it's me, C, back here with another video. Today, we're going to be talking about Wyrmprints. I know I hinted at this in my tips and tricks video, so finally, we're going to be discussing Wyrmprints more in depth because I feel like this was a topic that was meant for its own video. So, of course, if you are new here and all that, and you like what I do and want to see more, feel free to subscribe. We are currently on the road to 250 subs, and I'd love to see if that can happen. So, I believe in you guys. Let's do this. Let's do it! So, again, the support means everything to me. And also, check out the links below in the description for my Twitter and my Discord server. If you are new to Dragalia Lost and want some one-to-one help from me or other people, feel free to drop by. We're always happy to help new people. Just, be kind and stuff, please. And of course, if you want people to hang out with and stuff, come by. We always like new people. It's great. So, I will have timestamps for this video if you want to jump around, if you're more interested in seeing one particular thing, so you don't have to listen to me ramble for like 30 minutes or however long this video is going to be. So, that is going to be helpful for you guys. So, let's get started. First on the agenda, what are Wyrmprints? Let's go over to my collecciones and show off some Wyrmprints. So, Wyrmprints are a piece of equipment in Dragalia Lost that give your units extra abilities on top of their already existing abilities. Like, for example, Resounding Rendition gives 30% skill damage, so you'll be doing 30% more skill damage if you have this equipped, which is good. You want this on a lot of characters. I'll be talking more in depth on what prints you should use for what characters later on in this video. So, we'll get to that, just hold your horses. So, plus, on top of that, they have some really nice art here, which I think is really, really good. They didn't have to do this, but by golly, they went above and beyond just to give us some great fan art. So it's like, hey, if you have a favorite character of some kind, maybe they have a print with them on it. Maybe. Just gotta look and find out. But I really like the art, which is, I think it's great for showcasing this wonderful, colorful cast of characters in different art styles and stuff. I love this art. It is so good for thumbnails. So, I don't know, if you're an aspiring gacha YouTuber of any kind, this art is great for thumbnails. If you can find a high quality version. Don't use a pixelated version, please. Anyways, let's move on. So, next you're probably thinking, how can I purchase Wyrmprints? So, let's go in the shop over here. So, Wyrmprints are purchasable in the shop. As you can see, there's a whole section dedicated to them using a certain currency called Eld Water. So, let's use Here Comes the Sealers as our example. Here. I was going to use a different print for the example, but that recording didn't have my mic on, so we're kind of screwed. So, this is my backup. This is my backup, and it will work, I hope. So, how do you obtain Eld Water, for one example? So, Eld Water can be obtained through a few different ways. It can be obtained through dupes when you do summons. So, say you summon a 5-star you've already obtained, which is the worst pain in the world. You don't like that stuff. We don't like that stuff here. So, in that case, you will be getting Eld Water, which still, that is a good resource. You do want that. So, hey, it's nice. It's a nice trade-off. So, another way you can is through completing quests. Sometimes, like, in the missions and stuff, you will get a little bit of Eld Water. Not too much, but just a little bit. And they can also be obtained through event rewards. So sometimes, like, event quests or just event rewards from, like, accumulating points and all that, they all have Eld Water in there that you can rack up. I do need to mention this for people that are coming back and have not experienced 2.0. So back in the day, in the shop, we had to purchase every single dupe of a print. So basically, if we bought one copy of a print, we still had to buy the remaining 4 copies of the print that we needed to fully unbind it. Now, in 2.0, you only need to purchase one copy of this Wyrmprint to add it to your collection. So, let's say I buy Here Comes the Sealers, for example. That will be permanently added to my collection, which is really, really good. It kind of just cuts down on that water spending you're going to have to do. Though you still will have to do it, unfortunately. So, just keep that in mind. So, let's go over like the cost. So, for a 5-star, it costs 4,000 eld water. For a 4-star, it costs 2,000 eld water. And for a 3-star, it costs 200 eld water. Not too bad, right? Not too bad, yeah. It will let you get a good arsenal of Wyrmprints at the start, which I feel like at the very beginning, you should be purchasing Wyrmprints to get yourself situated. That is very, very important for you to do. So, let's obtain this Wyrmprint. So, now we have redeemed Here Comes the Sealers. So, let's say you get a print that you already own while completing a quest. So, if you get a dupe of a print when you complete a quest, that will be converted into eld water. So, it's basically one and done. Wyrmprints are just permanently added to your collection once you do obtain them. Keep that in mind so you don't have to go fish and farm for dupes in this sort of sense. So, there are some special cases with Wyrmprints. So, let's talk about this. Let's go over to the collection again. And where is my example? There it is. Paladin Defender. So, you might be asking, what is so special about this print? So, this print is actually a raid print. This is a print that you were going to obtain from a raid event back when Wyrmprints were obtainable through raid events, like way back in the day. Nowadays, we just get convictions from the Blazon summons. So this is one of the many Wyrmprints in the game that are obtained as rewards for participating in events. You can also obtain them through login bonuses as well. Like currently, we have a login bonus for 3rd anniversary going on where we can obtain a Wyrmprint. So, what do I call these prints? These prints are called welfare Wyrmprints because, of course, they're free. You obtain them at literally no cost of your eld water. The game just hands them to you. They're just like, here you go, have fun. Have this free thing we just gave you. And they cost less materials to upgrade. So, let's actually, let's go over here and find that print again, and I will show you. There we go. So, it costs a lot less to upgrade compared to any normal 4-star or 5-star. So, let's scroll all the way down. Let's find a 4-star print I have not touched. Oh, this is all like my augments and stuff. I gotta scroll down even more. Let's do Fallen Wings. I haven't worked on that one. So as you can see, yeah, there's a clear difference in that budget and that cost for that sort of stuff. So just keep that in mind, folks. Just keep that in mind. So welfare prints, especially when you're starting out, are your best friend. So make sure you do all the event compendium events in order to get a lot of good free Wyrmprints. That will help you out when you start the game. Just keep that in mind. Do not overlook the event compendium. It has a lot of great resources for you. So, next you might be asking, since we talked about how to purchase your Wyrmprints, how do we upgrade them? So, let's go over to the upgrade screen. As you can see, Wyrmprints have their own section. So, let's go over to Here Comes the Sealers from before. There we are. Here Comes the Sealers. So, Wyrmprints are upgraded by unbinding them, increasing their strength and HP they provide, which you can do through concentrated water right here, as you can see. Dominion prints are very different in how to upgrade them, but I'll talk about those in a later part of this video because they are very special. But if you are a new player, do not worry about Dominion yet. Do not stress yourself out quite yet about that. So, just so you know, this whole same system is used for dragons and weapons as well. So they do follow the same exact pattern. So there is consistency here, which I think is really, really good. Wyrmprints are upgraded mostly using elf water. As said before, they are also purchased by elf water. So, you will need elf water for this, and each unbind costs more and more elf water as you go along. So it's like this. Yeah, you will be using a fair bit of elf water to get these all unbinded. So be sure you have some in the back for that. However, there is a little bit of a workaround for this. So, as you can see here, I have some golden keys. So, golden keys or silver keys, depending on the rarity. Golden keys are used for 5 stars, and silver keys are used for 4 stars. You can use these instead to unbind your prints, which I think is really nice if you are on a budget per se. Which is great. So, just be on the lookout for, let me find it. Be on the lookout for these golden fragments. If you get 10 of them, you can trade them into the shop and get a full golden key. Which, hey, that's a free unbind on a print if you are on a budget, which is great. One little smaller thing about the unbinding process. Check this out. So let's do this. Check this out. So, after unbinding it twice, you get a refined version of the artwork, which is a nice little bonus if you really care about a certain character or something. I always look forward to this because I kind of just want to see, ooh, what's the refined art? Because the refined art is top tier, man. It is great. It is so good. So, hey, this rewards you for your efforts in terms of getting this upgraded. So, that's really nice. So, it's a little something to look forward to. It can give you a little dose of dopamine, per se. So, there's that. And make sure, and also, it does upgrade their abilities. So, like that 4 strike, it went up to 40%, which is very nice. So, now that we've discussed how to upgrade your Wyrmprints and how to purchase them, our next step is going to be what Wyrmprints should you equip to your characters. So, let me give a little disclaimer for this. I cannot give recommendations for everybody. I can't do that in this video because people are doing different things and stuff like that. So, it is relatively hard for me because, you know, if I did that, I'd be here all day talking about it. So I'm just going to give some blank templates you can grab from that do help. If you are looking for stuff for a specific character that I have covered on my showcases, there will be a playlist for all the showcases so you can look through those there. And I discuss why I picked those more in depth than I ever would here. Because, you know, this isn't about like a specific character today. So just keep that in mind as we're going through this, because this is a lot. This is a lot to go through for this part. So please do bear with me. Okay, so characters fall into some categories with their prints. So first, let's talk about DPS-oriented units. So DPS-oriented units, as you may think, focus on damage because, you know, DPS means damage per second. So they're more focused on their damage. So some examples of prints, you know what? Let's use Leonidas. Let's use my Leonidas here. So since Leonidas is a DPS character, you want a skill damage print on him. Since right here, mana caster skill damage. If you have these weapon-specific skill damage prints, use those because those are just going to be more optimal for you and have the higher percentage than the normal skill damage prints. I'd only use the normal skill damage prints, say if you're doing something Dominion-wise and you don't have enough copies for something, which they are good for that. They are good for that, don't get me wrong. So just remember that. They're not terrible by any means. Just keep that in mind. If you do have the weapon ones, I'd recommend them. So, you will also want some Affliction Punisher prints if someone on your team does an Affliction. So since Leonidas does Scorch Rent on the team, I gave him Scorch Rent Punisher. And the rest of my team has Scorch Rent Punisher that is able to do DPS damage to help get more damage out of that affliction that's coming out of Leonidas. So, that's good. That is really good. So another thing, this is a Dominion team, so this is a little bit different. Let's go to a different team. Let's go to my normal Shadow team. So this is a non-Nihility team. This is a non-Nihility team, so I have a little bit more freedom. I will talk about why later on, so don't worry about that. So, if you're running non-Nihility content, most people, let's see if, yes, you have it. Most people like to run strength double buff on their DPS characters. So, basically how the double buffs work is if you get a defense buff, like say from Patia, who gives defense buffs, then that character who has that prince will also get another buff. In this case, a strength buff on top of that. And these are stackable. This is why double buff has been fucking cheese the shit back in the Agito days with Karina cheese. It is fucking insane how much this can escalate. So, some DPS characters, let's go back to Leonidas. Or, you know what, let's talk about Shell, because she's right here. So, because they're kind of similar in this sort of regard. So, some DPS characters will require more specific prints like Force Strike, which is what I have on Shell, because she focuses on her Force Strike because she is a rapid fire mana caster. They focus on their Force Strike to get the most out of their damage. So, it is very, very, very important to read the kits of your characters, so be sure to go over into the collection, and let's use Leonidas, and then, you know, read their skills, read their abilities, learn what they do, so you get a better idea and grasp of what they do, so that gives you a little bit of an idea what prints you'd want to put on them. So now let's focus on supporting characters. So let's move over to Patty over here, because she's just right here. So, support characters that give buffs, so like Patia or Gala Elisan as another example, want prints that maximize on their buff time and allow them to get their buff skills faster. So, skills such as buff skill time, as you can clearly see down here, will help with getting that buff, those buffs, keeping them there much longer. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling on my words. But I do not recommend this if you're doing Nihility content because, well, again, buffs are kind of dead in Nihility. But I will talk about that more in depth a little later, so, you know, just keep that in the back of your head for a little bit later. They will also want skill haste. As you can see, I have 2 skill haste prints on here. Why do I have 2? I will talk about that later too, so just, you know, hold on a sec. And skill prep. Grace has skill prep right here, which Grace is a special case. We will talk about her in a sec. She is a very, very interesting case. So, to review, buff skill time, skill haste, and skill prep are good to put on your supporting characters so they are able to get their skills faster. Some of this overlaps with healers because, you know, they also want to get their heals as fast as possible. Let's go over to Hildegard. She's more of a traditional healer. So again, this kind of overlaps because, you know, these guys are a little similar, but they do different things. But these are very, very, very crucial, especially in co-op, for healing skills and your buff skills, because you want to get those out as fast as possible and be able to have that healing skill ready in case, say, someone takes a really hard hit and is in red HP and is going to die. So you need to have that ready to go. So that's why it's important to have these. So in the case of healers, healers will want things like recovery potency, which you could see down here, to get the most out of their heals. And you could also do stuff like force charge as well, or HP up, stuff like that. That works too, just to make sure they are able to survive and be able to get their skills as fast as possible. Now let's talk about Grace, because Grace is a very, very unique situation. So, let's actually, before we do that, let's go over to Grace. Because I know a lot of people are probably going to be re-rolling for Grace, because I will admit, she's very good. She is very good for 95% in this game. She is amazing. But, I need you all to keep in mind, let's go over her first skill. If the user's HP is below 40% of max HP when using the skill, increases the entire team's defense for 15 seconds. That part, it's like, okay, that's fine. If the user's HP is above or equal to 40% of the max HP, reduces their HP by 30% of the max HP, and grants the entire team a life shield. That is our key difference here. Life shield. Grace does not heal like a traditional healer. She gives you life shields, which is basically more HP to cushion blows, which basically makes her broken in a lot of shadow content. So, do not give her recovery potency because it doesn't work on Grace. She will not get the best effect out of it. So, just be sure of that. If you want a good Grace setup, here you go. Screenshot it if you want. I'm probably never doing a showcase on Grace because I don't play healers very often. So, if you want it, there you go. That is something I'd totally recommend for your Grace. Now let's talk about a little bit more, a different category of DPS characters. Let's go over here to my Mim, per se. So some DPS characters like to focus on dragon ramping, like Golemim here and Alberius, which you've been seeing kind of pop in because I've been using him lately. These sorts of characters are more focused on getting their dragon as fast as possible. So that's because that's where they get the most of their damage. They are very dragon oriented. So, Prints like dragon damage. I don't even know if I have dragon damage on her. No, I do not. But I have an affinity for that. We'll talk about affinities in a minute. So, dragon damage, dragon claws, which I do not have on her as well, but that also works. And dragon skill are really, really good fits for these characters. So, how they work is, with each shapeshift, these characters will get a buff to their strength, skill damage, defenses, etc., 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 depending on which one of these prints you give. This is what makes these characters, like Mim, so fucking busted in things like Raids and Morseati's Reckoning. So, that is fucking insane. Okay, so I do need to talk about Dragon Drive characters, because people will mention that. Let's see, where is Belina? There she is. So as you can see here, I have no dragon stuff on her, even though she has Dragon Drive. Dragon Drive is a very different mechanic where you technically are not shape-shifting, so that stuff does not apply here. So, do not equip Dragon Claws, Dragon Skill, Dragon Skills, I think the other one's called. Do not do that. These will not really do much for them. So you want to do stuff like this here to get the most out of their damage, because these characters get their damage from their skills and their sheer fucking strength. That's it. They do not ramp like Mim or Alberius. They do not do that at all. So just keep that in mind. So if you want like a blank template for like Belina or something, here you go. You could do something like this. So that's just going to have to depend though on if said character is good for Nihility or not. Because, well, this is a double buff set, and double buff is kind of dying out a little bit. So this is kind of like something from the bygone eras, I guess you could say. But still, this is here if you want that. So, let's now talk about ability capping. So let's go over to Patia for this example, because I think she's really good for this. So, when you are selecting your Wyrmprints, it is important to make sure you look at the percentages next to the abilities of each Wyrmprint. So let's click on Jewels of the Sun real fast to check this out. So, as you can see, it gives skill haste 8%. This percentage is how much of an ability this will give. So you will get 8% more skill haste. So that means you'll be getting your skills faster by 8%. However, there's another percentage that you will see, and that is the max 15%. This percentage in the parentheses is your ability cap. That is very, very important. So, for example, like I said, this is why I choose Patia for this. I have two skill haste prints, Jewels of the Sun and Seaside Memory, which have 8% and 6% respectively. So, if you add 8 plus 6, that is 14. So you will be getting a total of 14% more skill haste from these two prints, and you're just 1% from the cap from skill haste. Because of this ability cap, it is important to not use the same prints on the same character repeatedly, so you can't have like a full fucking deck of skill damage prints on a character. You can't do that because there is a cap on how much that will do. So again, say you put like 3 skill haste prints on Patia or something. Only 2 of them are gonna activate, so basically the other one's useless. So it's important to make sure you calculate that stuff, which is again very, very important. Some of these caps are a little difficult to decipher what they apply to. As some prints go under the different names, but they basically have the same effects. Let's talk about one of those examples. So let's go over to the prints. So one of these examples is going to be crit rate and flurry devastation. These prints function very similar to each other, but there is one difference. Let's look and find a flurry devastation print real fast. Let's use Queen of the Knife as our example for this. So flurry devastation increases your critical rate by 10% when the combo count is 15 or higher. Makes sense, right? So basically, if you keep doing your combo, you're gonna get more crit rate. So it stacks and stacks and stacks, which is great, which is really, really nice. So that is very, very good. Now let's see crit rate. I should not have said it stacks and stacks and stacks, but it's just like, oh yeah, it does this after you do a combo. Great. Okay, let's use Kung Fu Masters. Totally not because I love Lin Yu. Totally not. So, crit rate. So this one is axe specific, but basically, let's use it for this print example. If the user wields an axe, so basically you want to use this on your axe characters, it will increase their critical rate by 14%. So that basically means going into a fight, if you are using an axe character, they will have an increased crit rate off the bat, which is really nice. Since you probably will be using these sort of prints on characters that can rack a high combo count, you don't want to be using these same prints as they do share a cap, because again, they apply both to crit rate. So think wisely. If you are focused on a combo-oriented character, like, say, Galamascula, you may want to use Flurry Dev over crit rate. If not, if you're using a weapon type that is more used to getting crits, say like an axe or something that can't do a big combo very well, then use crit rate. So you've got to think about those situations because, well, at times, it's going to be important. But again, also remember, abilities have caps, so be sure you do that math and make sure you do not stack several like skill damage prints or something, because you will not be getting the best effect out of your prints that way. You are basically setting yourself up for disaster that way. You want to have a little variety. That's why I talk about that. So, you may have noticed that there's these little pictures here next to the Wyrmprints. Well, some of them, not all of them. These are called Wyrmprint Affinities, and there are 15 of these in total. On top of the existing abilities that you can have through your Wyrmprints themselves, Affinities will add even more abilities on top of that. That is, if you have enough of the same affinity equipped at a time. So, for example here, I have the Force Strike affinity and the Strength affinity on my Gala Leonidas. So, those are just like 2 affinities on there that will give you more abilities on top of your prints, which is really nice. It helps out a lot. Having one affinity is nice, but you will actually get more might if you have more than one affinity active on your print setup. So like here, I have 2, so that means I'm going to be actually getting more might out of this kit, which is really, really nice. So it's important to mix and match and find combos that work where you could get the most out of your might. The requirements for the Wyrmprint affinities to activate can be viewed by clicking on the affinity bonus button down here, so you can check this out. Just keep in mind there are some prints that do alleviate this, and they are called Sword Psalm. I think there's a Axe Psalm, I might be wrong, but I know there's a Bow Psalm as well. Those are Dominion prints, so if you're not doing Dominion quite yet, do not worry about these yet. Just know they are there, and they will alleviate the requirements for your affinities. So those, I think, are probably like your first targets for Dominion prints, in my personal opinion. So, something else you might have noticed when we were talking about upgrading Wyrmprints is the Wyrmprint copies down here at the bottom. So, whenever you go and upgrade a Wyrmprint, you'll see that there. I saved this for now because Wyrmprint copies are not exactly that important until you are more in the late game and starting to do, say, again, Dominion content and maybe try a cheese strat. Why do I say Dominion content? Because Master requires you to have 2 teams. And you need to have enough copies of a print for your 2 teams. If you do not have enough copies for said print and all that, they will not let you attempt Master. So you need to think wisely about this. Keep in mind that making copies will cost Elwater, so be prepared to have a good stash on that before you starting this way with investing your prints. Like, see? That, yeah! Look at that fucking cost. That is not cheap. That is something you're gonna have to probably wait on until your endgame. That's why I say, that's why I've said before, Wyrmprint copies are not something to be too concerned about when you are a newer player. So, some prints should be your top priority in terms of making copies, and these are the Affliction Punishers. So, let's go back over here. So, like Poison Punisher, Burning Punisher, Paralyzed Punisher, Flash Burn Punisher, Stormlash Punisher, Shadow Blight Punisher, stuff like that, that is going to be your top priority because you will most likely be having 2 to 3 DPS characters on your team. So it is important that all of them take advantage of any affliction that your team can afflict on a boss to get the most out of your damage. That is really, really important. So make sure you do make copies of these because these will be important for later down the road. Some other ones, like say you're doing cheese, you may want to do stuff for strength double buff if you're doing double buff cheeses, or skill haste if you're running, say, a buff bot and a healer on the same team. You'll want to do those too. So you gotta think about your team on this one because it's, again, these cost so much. The copies cost so damn much that you need to think really wisely before you decide, yes, I want to do this. So that is something you need to think about. But again, if you are not at this point in the game, do not stress yourself out on this quite yet. Okay, everything here that I'm going to talk about for the rest of the video is more endgame territory. This is not something you need to necessarily worry about right now if you are early game. But this is still something you should keep in the back of your mind once you start getting to Sinister Dominion, as we can see here. So, if you do want to stick around if you're a newer player, go ahead. I still think this is important information for new and returning players. So, let's talk about Curse of Nihility. It's something I've been talking about for quite some time. Let's dive deep into it. So, let's check out the details of Lilith's fight. So, let's see what she can do. So, Curse of Nihility. Let's read that description together. This debuff will dispel all buffs an adventurer has and prevent new buffs from being applied for a certain amount of time. Some buffs are exempt from this. So, this basically means certain buffs are basically nullified in Curse of Nihility, so you are not really able to use certain buffs. So, that means your double buff strategies you've been using for Agito are not going to work here. You're going to have to come up with new stuff. So, let's talk about some alternative prints you could use if you're still trying to understand, yo, what do? I don't know what to do here. So, one of my favorite things I love putting on characters is, let me see if I can find it, Flurry Strength. If you see my showcase videos, you know Flurry Strength is fucking everywhere. Because if you know how to play the game, you're certainly going to rack up just a little bit of a combo. Not a big combo all the time, but still a little bit of a combo that you can have this go into effect. So Flurry Strength is a good idea to put on your DPS characters. And what else? There's another sort of type I want to talk about that I like putting on. So HP equals strength. This is also really nice too. So that is going to give you more strength buffs for your DPS characters so they can do what they need to do under those circumstances. So basically getting the most out of your strength. Because the Dominion bosses do have a higher defense at like 15 compared to the Agizo's 10. So you will need to accommodate for that. So you're going to have to be more on the offensive and not so on the defensive with this. You need to pull out all the fucking stops. Healers don't exactly need that much adjusting. You could basically use anything I recommended to you earlier. For that, just make sure you don't use buff skill time because most buffs that use this are basically dead. So it is kind of a wasted slot per se. But I have gotten by with using buff skill time, but just don't heavily rely on it. Don't heavily rely on it because again, most buffs are dead. They're dead in Nihility, so do not stress yourself out too much on that. So now the time has finally come for me to talk about Dominion Prints. Oh, some of you have been waiting for this, I bet, this whole video. So now let's finally get into it. Let's use a print I have not upgraded. Let's use Savage Hawk. Let's just use this as like our example for this. So, remember everything I said about how to upgrade Wyrmprints? Yeah, once you get to working on Dominion Prints, toss everything I just fucking told you out. Do not think that that shit applies here. Because it doesn't. So, the old established rules are basically gone. They still follow the basic unbinding and HP strength, that kind of stuff. That still applies too, don't get me wrong. It's just the materials you need, that's out the window. So, how do we work on these prints? When you defeat the bosses, you will be earning 3 types of items. So, let's scroll over and find those real fast. So, as you can see here, we have these little shards and prisms. These are the normal boss drops. On top of that, let's scroll down a little bit further. So these all down here are basically your Wyrmprint memories. So how does that all work? Well, I'll explain. All of this is meant to be grinded out and stuff. So basically this is like our new endgame grind. In case you're wondering, this is the current endgame grind. So you're going to need a lot of fucking materials to do that. So, let's look at this for example. Yeah, you're going to need a lot. So, you're going to be grinding that out. And you're going to be grinding this out a bit. And you're going to be grinding that out a bit. Basically, it's a grind. That's all I got to tell you. So, now you might be asking, how do I equip these items in the first place? So, let's get out of this menu. So, you can only equip these on 6-star weapons. And the only 6-star weapons in the game right now are Agito weapons. So, let's go over to my Shadow Sword because I have those slots unlocked. So, there you go. I have those slots unlocked. You can only equip those to 6-star weapons. And you will need to unlock the Wyrmprint slots for whatever weapon you want to equip these prints to in order to do so. So, yeah, I have those slots there. Let's use a sword that I haven't done it on. Or have I? Yeah, here we go. I don't know why the water sword wasn't doing it. It's weird. So, that's not it. That's copies, slots. So right here, you will need these items for slots. For these Wyrmprint slots. My bad. It's been a while since I've checked these menus, so please do bear with me. So yeah, you will need to do a little bit of grinding, but I think these slots are rather cheap. So I think starting out with Dominion, it is very important to get those slots unlocked so you are able to just smack them on right away when you get a print. Just so it's like, oh, it's just a little strength boost. But as you progress with upgrading these prints, it will get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So, with that being said, you will need to have some sort of investment into Agito. You can't just walk in here thinking that these will work on Chimera weapons or anything else. You will need to have some investment in Agito before these slots can be unlocked. So keep that in mind. And I will warn you, Sinister Dominion, you should not be tackling that until you are done with Master Agito and you can safely grind Master. So keep that in mind. Dominion is not easy. Do not think it's easy. You could probably skirt by Standard, but that's not really going to help you much. You can unlock like one slot and that's it. So make sure that you do some investment in Agito just so you are able to grind out these prints, because you will need to do that, especially. So, with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching and listening to me talk about Wyrmprints for like 30 minutes. I hope this guide was helpful, and if you want to see more of like these videos from me, please do let me know. I have 2 more I do want to do for you guys, so be on the lookout for those. I don't know when those are coming out. So, again, hope this is very helpful to you. Share this around. I just hope my wisdom was able to help other people that are starting the game or getting into endgame content, whatever. So yeah, I do appreciate it. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.